to John Gleeson, Director of Waterford-based Radius Technologies. Good morning, John.
Good morning, Damien.
John, I know you heard some of what Orla had to say there in terms of systems. Can you just explain to a gobdaw like myself, how can an internal system, I suppose, work, a closed system that will not be affected potentially by a hack? So you're working in a particular company, there could be 100 people there, and you might say, OK, we have an internal system here that we know will not and has not been corrupted. Is it possible to do that?
It's never possible to be 100% certain, Damien. Security is to use the phrase, it's like an onion, multi-layered. So it's impossible. I mean, you've got the likes of the HSE who have I won't say unlimited resources, but they have significant resources, and they got hacked. But it is important for companies to ensure that they have robust systems in place. It'll be important for them to carry out a cyber review on their IT systems. But most importantly, it's the recovery. It's the disaster recovery, or as we call it in our industry, a DOR plan. So to have that plan in place and make sure it's in place and tested. They also need to make sure that their IT systems are locked down, that they're patched and they're managed securely. And there's a kind of a topping or icing on the cake. What they might do is go through maybe a cyber essential certification and get their business certified. They'd be the most important points.
Now, I know you're on the 6 crossroads in the city and you're experts in cybersecurity, so you get a lot of people coming to you. And I'd say the last few weeks as well, particularly the last week, I'd say you've had a lot more people calling to you about looking at their own systems, have you?
Oh, the phones are hopping. In fairness, I mean, we've been saying this for a long time. I won't say saying it, but singing from the treetops about cybersecurity. What's happened, I suppose, in a lot of cases is, this time last year or March of last year, there was a big rush for people to get out of the office because of COVID. And people were set up, and they might have been set up securely, or they might not have been set up securely. But COVID was the driver for the IT sort of security system and strategy. So I think right now, who's driving that IT strategy? Is it your CEO, your MD? Is it your CTO if you have one? But really, in reality, it's not. It's the hacker. It's the hacker that's driving the people's security thinking, and rightly so at the minute. Yeah.
How conscious have you to be as well, if you're an organisation, that somebody that might be working with you, that might be in there, they might know your systems and they might leave the company? Like, I know it's a far-flung thought, but somebody that would potentially use the knowledge that they would have within the system to corrupt the system if they want to in the future.
Well, that's why it's important to have a managed IT system, so that if you have an employee who leaves, that you make sure they're locked out. You make sure that any access remotely is shut down. And I suppose, importantly as well, there's and I know a lot of people are familiar with two-factor authentication, or 2FA, or MFA as it's called, multi-factor authentication, where nowadays if you log on to the likes of Facebook or you're banking online, you get a text or something like that, or you use an app on the phone to get a code that you input, which means that only you or somebody authorised by you can actually access your systems. But internally is a big issue. And in fact, I suppose a lot of these attacks, the vector or the method that's used to get into systems comes externally to internally, a lot of the time through email systems. And if your IT system is not locked down properly, then that gives the hackers the ability to install the cryptoware and then encrypt your files and go like that. So,
a very simple question. I was reading a lot about this at the weekend, like the idea that the HSE didn't have a backup system. They had certain backup systems, but those backup systems, they're afraid, were corrupted as well. That's apparently what I'm getting from what I'm reading.
I can't speak, Damien, for the HSE or what they had or didn't have in terms of backups, but the important piece for that is to make sure that there is a robust backup system in place, and equally that it's tested. No matter how small or how big your organisation, that is absolutely crucial.
And just explain, if you wouldn't mind, in 60 seconds, John, what is the dark web? So they're talking about putting about people's information on the dark web. And will something then come from the dark web into the bright web?
The dark web, Damien, is part of the internet that most people wouldn't access in the normal course of events. You need to download a specific browser to get there, and that's where a lot of this trading goes on in data and information. Now, as I say, most people wouldn't access it, wouldn't want to access it, and it's not just data that's available. These hackers have gotten to the point where they're a business. They're an actual business. My understanding is that and it's not just Russia, but this particular crowd in Russia, they have 200 employees. Now that's how big they are. That's bigger than most Irish SMEs. But to get back to your question, the dark web is where this information is for sale, where hackers can actually make use of the hacking as a service, so you can pay per use of the system. But essentially, it's and sorry, to go back to you and answer directly your question, will that surface on the normal web? Quite possible, yeah. Or the information could possibly be made available to other organisations who might then target specific individuals.
John, very well explained. Listen, thanks very much. Mind yourself, and to you and all your staff there, take care.
Thanks, Amy.